good evening to the folks who are signing on online. I'm Bob Dwyer from the Pocasset Village Association, and Jane Herter from the Cataumet Civic Associates is a co-sponsor of this Candidates Night tonight, and I want to welcome everybody. I'm not going to do too much in terms of further introductions. I will do a little commercial for anybody who hasn't and wants to join the Pocasset Village Association. We have envelopes at the back, and you can sign up, and you can go ahead and pay your dues through that. And Gina Zarovitz has an example of our very nice newsletter that just went out to all of our paid members. So if you're interested, please feel free to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Jane. If you would go ahead and just introduce yourself and say hello for the folks in Cataumet. We're going to have to do that for you.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, hi. I'm Jane Herter from I'm the president of the Cataumet Civic Associates. We are co-hosting this Candidates Night for the 2023 elections on May 16th, and I would like to welcome both Pocasset and Cataumet residents that are here, and anybody else who is coming from otherwhere. But welcome, and I hope it turns out to be a good night. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane.
Feel better.
Okay.
So,
Turn it around. If you will, in a minute. If you turn your sound off for a minute.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, I've got an omnidirectional mic here that should be able to hear questions from people in about the first 3 rows. Anyone else is going to have to come up and get closer. Now, the ground rules for tonight is that we're going to go through the candidates in the order on the ballot. We're going to allow anybody who is in a uncontested race to have 1 minute to just go over their background, their qualifications, etc. And they'll be available to take a few quick questions about that particular race and their qualifications for the office. For the contested races, we're going to allow each candidate to have an introduction of 3 minutes each. And when we go through a particular set of people applying for an office, at the end we'll get all of the folks for that office to come up here in the front, sit and answer questions from all of you and from the people online. In any case, we will get to you. We're going to take questions from people in the room first, and then people who are online. My guess is that we will have at least half of the candidates here tonight, and in a couple of cases I've got regrets from folks who are sick, and in one case a statement from somebody who's got a conflict and couldn't come tonight. So with that, I'm going to start at the top of the ballot, and I'm going to introduce our current moderator who is running for re-election, Amy Kular. And if anybody online can't hear, please use the podium. And what I'm going to do is turn it around this way so people can see you.
Great, lucky them. Hi everyone, I'm Amy Kular. I'm running for my 3rd term as moderator. We just completed my 4th town meeting, so thank you all if you came out and voted. So about me, I'm a Massachusetts native. I grew up on the South Shore, graduated from Norwell High School. I'm a graduate of Wellesley College. I then went to Suffolk University Law School, so I'm a practicing attorney. I've practiced law on Cape Cod for 13 years, and I've recently made a career change, and I'm currently serving as the general counsel at the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office. I really enjoy being moderator. I feel my legal training has given me patience and the ability to see both sides and to come to an agreement. Very passionate about what I believe the duty of moderator is, which is to conduct a clean town meeting, being respectful of people's time, but also protecting everyone's right to vote. It's very important to me. In the past in town, I've served as chair of the zoning board for 5 years. I was chair of the Charter Compliance Committee, which is a moderator appointment, so I no longer serve on that committee. And I just generally have a strong belief and commitment to serving my local community. So you'll often see me volunteering for stuff. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Another uncontested seat is a seat on the Select Board and the Board of Sewer Commissioners. It's one position for 3 years, and Anne Marie Saronian is the candidate.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here, the Cataumet Civic Association, as well as the Pocasset. My name is Anne Marie Sarunian. My husband and I live in Monument Beach, and we have been there for 23 years, raising 3 children who are now adults and on with their careers, which is a wonderful place, but they always love coming back to the Cape, especially during the summer months. They still call it home, which is a good feeling. Service to the community is my top priority. I actually missed serving the community over the last few years. I started about 20 years ago as a library trustee. I was instrumental in bringing and developing the children's programming at the library from early childhood up through even the high school level, some programming and bringing in an assistant to the children's library. Then I moved on to, in later years, 8 years on the school committee. The last 2 years I served on the school committee as the chair of the school committee. And I think one of the highlights of that career was bringing forth a full-day kindergarten program to the community. That was non-existent.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And then more recently, my service to the community was through the Charter Review Committee appointment. So I'm hoping to just serve the community in any capacity that I can.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Anne Marie? One in the back. Keith.
So, Keith Barber, Bella Vista Drive, Pocasset. I'm with the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition also, and we're very concerned about the new DEP regulations and how that's going to be handled in town. So there appear to be 2 options. One is we have DEP regulations governing the timeline. 2 is we have a watershed permit, which enables the town to set the timeline so we're not all forced into crazy 5-year execution of these regulations. Do you have an opinion on that?
I just started to do my research. I think it's really important. One of the most important things for the community at large is protecting our natural resources. So I am going to do a deeper dive into, that's where I really have to do more of my homework, but I'm absolutely 100% on board with resolving our water quality.
Well,
in different waters.
that's important, and that's why this whole thing is happening.
Right.
But the situation with a watershed permit gives the town a 20-year timeline versus the DEP regulations, which is a 5-year timeline. And we know there's going to be cost issues, there's supply chain issues, there's training of people to do the installation of these new systems. 5 years is just brutal. So our group, which we represent about 275 people right now, and we're all very much in favor of a watershed permit application.
Okay, thank you. Good to know.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Anne Marie.
John, do you want to ask a question?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question.
John, you've got to come way up,
My
especially
name
this
is John
past
York, I live in Cataumet. So one of the big things that's happening in our town in the next 10 years is the replacement of the bridges. And that's, it's really hard to imagine the scale of that. $4 billion is enough to run our town for 50 years. There's many concerns, and everyone in town has going to be impacted, and many people have different concerns. Making sure that those concerns are represented to Mass DOT, and beyond that, that Mass DOT perhaps responds to those concerns. I think is going to take all different functions of the town, and I think that the selectmen are going to need to get involved in that. So I'd just like to hear you talk about that a little bit and what you see as, just like to hear you talk about that a little
So
bit.
one of the most important things for me with respects to the bridge project is obviously being well represented, a voice. I do know that MassDOT has developed a task force, and we have multiple representation from the different municipal buildings in our district, in our town, that will be part of that task force, from superintendent to DPW to select select board representation, town administrator representation. I do know that task force will exist. I also have a larger concern as well that, yes, Bourne is going to be greatly impacted by the bridges, but the Cape as a whole should also have a voice, and each community as a whole on the Cape should have representation as well, because it impacts the entire Cape.
Dusty Meyer is a familiar face around Bourne. He has volunteered his time in a number of town boards and committees. His credits include appointments to the Public Works Facility Building Committee, Intermediate School Building Committee, Police Station Building Committee, Wastewater Facility Building Committee, and Southside Fire Station Building Committee. He has also served on the Board of Health for 3 years and said that he has learned a great deal regarding the public health issues during that time. He noted that he worked at the Barnstable County Septic Test Site on cutting-edge septic system testing and has experience himself as a septic system installer for both residential and commercial properties. Quote, "With my experience, I feel that I have the skill set to be an effective member," he said. Meyer has lived the majority of his life in Bourne, a product of the Bourne Public Schools. He has been married to Marie Meyer for 50-plus years. The couple also have 2 children, current Select Board Chairman Peter Meyer and their daughter Marie Meyer. Mr. Meyer said the biggest issue facing the Board of Health is the pending State Department of Environmental Protection Title V regulations. He said that given the uncertainty of how the newly elected Governor Maura Healey's administration plans to move forward with the regulations, that, quote, "the towns don't know how to plan to implement them. This will affect the Board of Health's day-to-day operations with everything else they have to do, including inspections of restaurants, new construction, enforcement orders," he said. He added that consideration has to be given to the property owners who do not have the money to convert an existing cesspool to a septic system that will meet the new Title V regulations. Quote, "Without direction from the Mass DEP and our elected leaders, this is a recipe for disaster for everyone," he said. An equally important issue for the Board of Health to address, he said, is updating the board's own policies and regulations. He believes many of the existing regulations are very much in need of updating. Quote, "We need to have a goal and policy, a yearly meeting to decide what policies and regulations will be the priority for the next year," he said. This way, it will give direction to the Board of Health agent and the town administrator on how to proceed with the budget as well. He noted that the Board of Health has the site assignment for the Bourne landfill expansion, so compliance with that responsibility is another imperative. Meeting the conditions of the site assignment and supporting the Integrated Solid Waste Management Department with their needs will make the landfill a successful project, he said. The future of our landfill will have rippling effects throughout the town and the region if it's not monitored properly, he said. Okay, we're going to move on to the next candidate on the list, which is Robert Collette.
Greetings, everyone. Bob Collette, longtime resident of Pocasset, been here for 29 years, and had born and raised in Brockton, where I got married with my wife and moved down here for a nice place for us to raise our children, and we've really been entrenched here for a long time now. And so, been involved in the community a lot earlier in my time here, particularly on the Board of Health. I served from 1999 to 2002. Had a great time with that. At that time, my kids were young and getting into some extracurricular activities and so forth, so I chose to spend my time mentoring them, coaching them. I ran the Pop Warner League for 8 years, coached baseball for many years, coached basketball. Also took a shot at Board of Selectmen back in 2009, and that didn't work in my favor. But most importantly, what I have is 28 years of experience with the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, where I'm the Cape Cod Regional Tobacco Control Director. And I've pipelines, direct contacts with all the other folks and departments within our department at the county, and all the upstream partners, including the FDA, EPA, DEA, and so forth. Anxious to bring some service back to the town, and it's always been my spirit to do so. and great working relationships with all the people that I've ever worked with, not only professionally, but in a volunteer sense as well. So a couple of folks from Town Hall actually called me and asked me to run, and I had considered that anyway because of the articles that I had read where there are so many vacancies in the various boards across town. I felt like I had a lot to offer, and I still do, and I'm anxious to get to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Bob?
Yes, sir.
Say your question, I'm like a broken record.
Yeah, no, okay, I get it, and I too favor the working with the water district so we can establish, a district. That would take a lot of pressure off of the public. It's going to take some collaboration with the water districts, and I don't know if any of that has taken place yet.
Well, this is an issue of the watershed permit.
Right.
Which would allow the town to gradually,
Right, over 20 years.
put the new rules in place.
Right.
So are you in favor of that, or would you?
Absolutely. You're going to take a lot of pressure off people.
Next up is William Bill Doherty. And I'm going to be very, very religious about the 3-minute limit, Bill.
Oh, somebody knows me.
Not only do I know you, I think I'm very close to a cousin.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I've been told that the way to be happy is to serve people. Father Tom, my pastor keeps telling me that all the time, and I agree with it. You have to have credentials in order to do something. And by the way, Bobby Collette is somebody who used to work for me at the county. He did a great job in what he did. He's certainly well qualified for it. And if I wasn't running, I might go for myself. But at the same time, I have credentials to run for this office. I worked at a city hospital for several years when I was in college. I ran a consolidated mess hall when I was in the Army for a year and a half. 717 meals a day, 3 days a week, and all of that. And I remember the first thing I said to everybody, to the NCOs, I think I was about 23 years old, show me your hands, because cleanliness is next to godliness. I was a county commissioner when we founded the wastewater collaborative, down at the county, so I have some familiarity with that. I always supported and agreed with with the septic betterment program, because George Boyfelter, who was running that, was always introducing more innovations, and we kept track of that. So, looking at restaurants, knowing something about health and public health, knowing something about the importance of wastewater management, here on the Cape. Now, what do I bring with this? I have an undergraduate degree in physics from Boston College. I have an MBA from Babson. I've done graduate work in English literature because it was a bucket list. Because I went to college, I wanted to major in English and philosophy and cafeteria, and my parents said to me, "You got to get a job when you get out of college." So I became a physics major. I'm a life member of the Electrical Engineering Society and a chapter chairman in Boston. I was a
45 seconds, Bill.
I was a cemetery commissioner. I was on the Cape Cod Commission for several years. I was the chair of the Cape Light Compact, and a lot of other stuff. But the main thing is, I would ask for your vote, Bill Doherty, when the election comes up, and if you vote for me, I will do a good job for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. I contradicted my own plan beforehand, and let me guess. Keith has a question.
Yes, it was the same question as what he said.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
The
Bill.
same question. I'm in a rut.
Said.
Yeah.
It's what Bob said. You can't.
Bill, come on up to the microphone,
Okay,
please.
you can't come up with what I would call, the equivalent of an unfunded mandate on people and say, okay, we've decided that we're going to do this all together. Reach into your pocket. Where are you going to get the dough for this? It is important to take care of this issue, and we can take care of it, but there has to be common sense applied to it. And what's common sense? To make sure that we're not putting a gun to people's head to make them do something that they have to do, but not taking into account, can they afford to do it? That's not the way to run, that's not the way to run a democratic society.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay, any other joint questions for Bob or Bill or both? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, the next is the library trustees. We have 2 positions available for 3 years, and we have 2 candidates. So I would like to start with Kathy Fox Alfano, there she is, to come up and spend a minute telling us about herself, her qualifications, and what she brings to the job.
Hi everyone, thank you to Pocasset and Cataumet, what lovely villages. Thank you for this opportunity. This will be my 2nd term as library trustee. In my former town in Canton, I was a trustee for about 12 years or so. For the past 2 years, I've been the chair. It's been a really interesting 3 years. We had to close the library because of COVID. We had an abrupt departure of our director. We hired a new wonderful director, and we've had lots of fun with the building. I don't know if you know, but it leaks. There are literally times when I've stood in the library with an umbrella. We need help at the library. Fortunately, you all voted for some funds for a feasibility study for the library, which is going to look at, is this library even going to be able to stand for the next 20 years? We also voted for money for the front of the library. We found it is contaminated, it's leaking, and the steel that's holding it up was corroded. So we're going to be fixing that. That's a good thing. So our next step is we're going to have a strategic plan. And I would look to everybody to come and talk about what their vision of the library for the next 30 years would be. And it's everything from, do you want more books, less books, more meeting rooms, more programming? What's important to you, and how we can go about making the public library really public. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Next, I'd like to invite up Dr. Christina Produce, or Tina Produce.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks to Pocasset and Cataumet Villages for hosting this tonight. I'm Tina Produce. On the ballot, you will see me as Christina Produce. I, too, have served with Kathy for the last 3 years as a library trustee. It's been a very, very rewarding experience. In terms of my background, my education is in science. PhD, and that led me eventually to the corporate world. And I think the skills I learned in the corporate world are certainly more applicable to helping as a library trustee than perhaps the test tubes and the Bunsen burners of my education. The library trustees are, the charter states that the library trustees are in charge of the care and custody of the building. But we know a library is not just the 4 walls, the desks inside. It's not just books. This is a community building, a place where anyone in our community can come in on equal footing, can come in to learn, to read, to meet, and to socialize. What we've done in the past 3 years is remarkable. I look back 3 years ago, we were putting Band-Aids on leaks in the building, Band-Aids on staffing issues. Right now, we have a vision, and we're taking those steps to address the short-term needs of the building, look to the future with a feasibility study that was funded in the special town meeting last week. And then in the midterm, as Kathy said, we'll be working on a strategic plan to see what this community needs to make it a robust community.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Tina and or Kathy? Okay, thank you very much. The next office is the Community Building Trustee Veteran. Is Chris Farrell in the room? Is Chris Farrell online by chance?
He is not.
He is not. Okay, moving down. Community Building Trustee, non-veteran. Danelle Lonigan Beals.
Danelle's not here.
Not here, okay, moving down. The next is the school committee. We have 3-year terms, 3 positions, and 3 candidates. So if any of the candidates, let's see, first, Carrie Maria Schofield. I thought I saw Schofield on there, is that Bob Schofield?
This is Bob Schofield, Carrie's not here.
Okay, Carrie's not here. Donald Lonigan Beals, again, is a candidate for the school committee, he's not here. Kendallin Kavanagh-Gagne.
Kendall's not here either.
Okay. Oh, that's right, I did get a call from her and she was conflicted tonight. Now the planning board, right now we have, this is broken up. We have 1 position that's a 1-year position with 2 candidates. And then we have 3 positions with 3-year terms and we have 4 candidates. So we're going to hear successively from 6 successive candidates, and then we'll bring them all up front for questions at the end of their initial statements. Again, each of these folks will have 3 minutes to speak. The first for the planning board for the 1-year position is Dusty Meyer, and you heard his statement before for the health department position, and he's again unable to be here. The next for that position is Kathy Walton, and I know I saw her.
Catherine's here. Hi.
It's Kathy or Catherine? Catherine, sorry.
I answered to both though. Spell it with a C. Hi everyone, I'm Catherine Walton and I'm running for the 1-year position of planning board. I have, first of all, thank you for having this event. It's nice to be able to get up and talk to people and hear what you're looking for in a candidate. I've lived in Bourne for 30 years with my husband and my daughter. I have been participated on the school committee, volunteered in school. Some of my professional experience that I think will enable me to do this job is 25 years of hands-on experience, team management, implementing and troubleshooting software and hardware, overall infrastructure roadmaps, including functionality, cloud migration issues, third-party integrations, networking, distribution, and contractual escalations. So I don't have any direct experience on the planning board, but I have a lot of those skills that I think I can bring to the board and complement the existing board. One of the accomplishments I have from the school committee that I like to talk about to show that I actually do get in there and do the research and talk to people. During my time on the school committee, I was a member of the facilities committee and the budget committee. And part of the budget committee, I researched and discovered hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct me if I'm wrong, that the town was charging the school district for, hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance and registrations for vehicles that were no longer in use. And that had been going on for years. So my point is that I will get in there, I will research, and would really appreciate your help. Thank you. Any questions?
Let's hold questions right now.
Oh,
We're going to go through
okay.
the other 4.
All right.
I'm going to follow my own route. Okay, next I'd like to hear from Jean Nazarowitz. There she is.
Jean, be sure to speak to the microphone, please.
I'll try.
Thank you.
What can I say? I am running now for this will be my 3rd term for the planning board. I've enjoyed the last 6 years. I've learned a lot. It is very rewarding. It has its moments of stress and so forth. And I must say, public speaking is not one of the reasons why I'm running for planning board. My background, I graduated from Falmouth High School, feels like a million years ago, and then I went to University of Massachusetts, ULowell back then, and I majored in economic theory and sociology. And then went on to work for myself and went to graduate school at the Conway School of Landscape Design and Planning. And it's their philosophy is to teach ecological and sustainable planning where humans fit the land in an appropriate manner. And that gave me a very good background knowledge on working with bylaws and zoning regulations and understanding how the complications of overlaying issues and working for all the people of the town for whatever. So that gave me some great hands-on experience for that. And in the past, I've also served on, I'm serving now, I'm appointed to the Design Review Committee, which is also our purview is in the downtown district. That's been very rewarding. And I'm looking for a vote so I can run take part for another 3 years. I don't have an agenda. You know, I do my best to stay within the guidelines of the zoning bylaws and just make the best outcome for the town and take everything into consideration that we need to.
Okay, thank you, Jean.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Okay. Next up is Elizabeth Brown.
Liz isn't here.
Liz isn't here, okay. Sandra Goldstein.
Sandra, I'll remind you to please speak up even louder than you think the microphone needs.
Okay.
For whatever reason, we're not getting a whole bunch of volume here. I'm going to put this without me.
I think people speak softly sometimes.
Not here.
Not here? Okay. Don't.
Get this as close as I can. Okay.
Okay. Sandra Goldstein, currently on the planning board, looking to be re-elected to my 3rd term. Many people said, why don't you quit like other people do? And I have a commitment to it. I really, I don't mind it when it gets to be a little rough and troublesome. I kind of dig into that, especially with our mandates for wastewater treatment, etc. My background is in education. I taught for 38 years, middle school and teacher training, science mostly, literature and language arts. Have a background and a strong interest in landscape design in a way, landscape architecture, geology. I'm really interested in and know a bit about the geology of Cape Cod, melted glacier. We don't have bedrock, it's very sandy soil and everything goes right through it, including everything you do. So it's not surprising that we have a nitrogen problem. I'd just like to go over some of the responsibilities of the planning board, just as a review. I'm sure you all know about it. The planning board reviews, that's everything the planning board does is basically affects everything else in town. You can't cite a big project that uses water and gets sewer allotment and brings in people without affecting everybody. So it's a very serious, important board, and that's why I like it. I like the effects that it has and the realization of how much what you do affects everybody else, the whole town really, especially in our infrastructure and our land use. We review commercial projects, subdivisions of land, updating zoning bylaws, and deal with subdivision regulations. The chair usually controls the agenda and shapes the debate. We've had some turbulence, a little, but I don't know any board that doesn't have it or should have it anyway. Everybody can't be a copy and a rubber stamp of everybody else. So we're working to slowly open more communication within the board, and something I think should be helping minutes of everything, oh, for God's sakes. Okay. The flow of information. I think there should be more flow of good information in town. I find sometimes I find out about things, or somebody's been hired, and I didn't know about it, don't know anything about their credentials. So it happens on the planning board too sometimes. Some committees are formed, and I don't even know they're formed. I'm not on them. They come back with something, and I'm supposed to look at it and make comments. So, all of our vital interests, one of my philosophies is all of our vital interests should be respected. Whether you're a neighbor to a big project, you're a small development like Everett Street is to that big project there across from the town hall, Kendall Ray, Calamar, the hotel, the parking lot for MMA. That's a big project, and that's going to impact that area a tremendous amount. And early on, I had my concerns about the size of it and the cars, the traffic coming in and out of there on Perry Avenue. I thought perhaps, we should have a consultant that might give advice as to how much that would affect everybody, including that little area back there. people won't get out of Perry Avenue and they'll use Everett and be in that neighborhood. So I'd like to return for a third term and continue what I do.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. And our last candidate, John Duggan. And as I said, if we start to have a lot of questions for the candidates, I'm going to get all 6 or 5 sitting up here, and we'll pass the microphone around so the folks online can hear. And we have 25 or more online?
We have 23.
23. John, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for inviting me to the Pocasset and Cataumet Candidates Night. John Duggan, live in Sagamore Beach with my wife. My daughter and her family are there as well. We've been here about 7 years. I grew up in Arlington, moved to the South Shore around '99, lived in Plymouth for a while, and eventually wound up in Bourne. My wife and I have a small design build company. We build houses, we do additions, we do remodels. Been doing that for about 15 years. Prior, I had worked in consumer product sales and sales management for about 30 years. I worked for a manufacturer and covered all of North America for retail chains and wholesalers, and then started an independent rep agency in New England where we represented some very fine manufacturers for about 20 years. As we lost our New England accounts to the national chains, I segued into building, and I've been doing that for about 15 years now. I too was tapped on the shoulder and asked if I would consider volunteering. It's been a commitment I've had my whole life. I've served a number of social service nonprofits. I spent time on the board of Child and Family Services in Massachusetts, and a lot of volunteering for other social service agencies. Many times it would be for doing repairs to their clients' homes and that sort of work. My experience is on the other side of the table as a proponent going before the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals. And so I have a very good understanding of the responsibilities of the Planning Board, of the process. As some of the other candidates have explained very well, commercial development, residential subdivision, zoning regulations are all part of the purview of the Planning Board. My experience with those is varied in all those areas, from commercial development, residential, and advocating for zoning changes and updates as needed. I am familiar with all the denitrification systems that are approved by the state, and we have installed a number of them. I'm 100% in support of the watershed permit. And I would be glad to put my management skills, my experience with the boards to work for the residents of Bourne.
Okay, thank you, John. Now, before we go further, can I just get a show of hands of who have questions for the planning board candidates? Okay, seeing none, so we won't do the panel up here. Okay.
It's too bad.
Okay.
I'm good at that.
By the way, there was one other planning board position open. It's a 2-year position, and there's one open, and it's uncontested, and James Robinson sent his regrets. I forgot to say that earlier. So it would have been 7 up here if everybody showed. Okay, our last set of candidates is candidates for the Recreation Authority. This is a 3-year term, and there is 1 position available. And I'd like to start with Greg Foligno. Greg, you got 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. First of all, I'd like to also echo a thank you to both Pocasset and Cataumet for hosting this evening for candidates. I have lived here. We raised our 4 children in Bourne, myself, my wife, Ann, all Bourne-educated college graduates that I'm very proud of. And now I've had the opportunity to raise, or not raise, or co-raise, I guess, our 4 grandchildren. And 2 of them were here this evening and handed you a little bit of a bio on who I am and who I've been. I love this town. I spent my entire career at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy as their head athletic trainer, 37 years. I was elected, well, first I was a member of your finance committee. I spent 10 years on the Bourne Recreation Committee, and for many, many years as a member of the Bourne Recreation Authority. I sincerely thank you very much for entrusting in me those opportunities, because it has truly been my passion to serve and serve this town. The Recreation Authority has been, I've used my undergraduate degree there in health, physical education, and recreation to sponsor programs and develop programs recreationally for our campers. The ice arena is a special place for me because my kids were all hockey kids, and so it was a natural evolution for me to stay involved with those 2 facilities. We have 2 of the most beautiful facilities that we are the stewards for. The Bourne Recreation Authority is under the guise of the United States government and the United States Corps of Engineers. They are basically our boss. They're our landlord, and they dictate what we do or don't do. And we've had a good working relationship with them over the years. Right now, it's a challenge because of the potential that was mentioned earlier for bridges. More importantly, we've had meetings with the Corps, we've had meetings with DOT, and initially they had no clue who we were and what we did. And we said, you have this bridge going right through our property. And sure enough, now we're at the table. We've had 4 individual meetings with them. There's another meeting on the 16th, Election Day, with DOT and Barry Johnson, who you all know is our general manager, but serves as our spokesperson with them. And the spans going over the canal are what they are. They're 50 feet wide by the width of the canal, but it's the infrastructure changes that they're going to make on whether it be the north or south side of the bridge that are going to be devastating. Not only to us, but I think to this community, it's going to look different. With the on-ramps, the loops, everything that they're planning, it's going to look different. I would like to close by simply stating that I truly am proud to be a resident of this town. I'm truly proud to represent you, and I hope that you consider me again for another term as a member of the Bourne Recreation Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And the second candidate is Robert Buckley. Oh, we'll do questions afterwards.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm Robert Buckley. I'm also running for the Bourne Recreation Authority. This is my first time running for public office, and I got to give everyone a pat on the back that's served in a role that's unpaid and probably underappreciated. It's a lot like coaching. Everyone tends to complain, but then nobody actually wants to do it. I've lived in Bourne my whole life as well. I have myself and my wife and our 4 kids, 2 of them which were here today, attempting to hand out pamphlets. I apologize if they were a little loud in the back. They have no attention span. And somebody mentioned patience. Well, having kids definitely teaches you to have patience, so appreciate that. I'm a graduate of Bourne High School, been through the Bourne school systems, and my collegiate took me to Emerson College, where I was a communications major and a journalism minor. So Greg kind of mentioned all the things that the Recreation Authority does, and living in Bourne, I was a hockey player growing up as well, and I pretty much was a rink rat. I stayed at the rink a lot. My first job was at the rink. I was a scorekeeper, I was a referee, and I worked in the pro shop. So I spent many a time, many an hour, many a week in the rink. And today I've got 4 kids, as I mentioned. 2 of my kids are active. I coach 2 of their hockey teams, and one of them is now learning how to skate. So pretty much got my finger on the pulse on the rink side of things. things. And, I appreciate everything that the stewards on the Recreation Authority have done over the years. It's an impeccable facility, as is the Scenic Park. But I think sometimes you need some change, and sometimes you need a new voice and new leadership, and I think that's kind of what's lacking in town in general. So I think this is some place where I can help. And obviously I've got a pretty vested interest. I'm in the ring 4, 5, 6 times a week, and I think I can bring a new voice and some new ideas hopefully to the board. So what I do in my current job while I'm not taking care of kids is I'm the Director of Operations for a family HVAC business. And in that role we sell commercial heating, ventilation, air conditioning products to commercial contractors. So pretty much any big commercial project throughout New England, we're supplying equipment to those contractors. So I've got a pretty good construction background. I understand how things are bought and sold. I understand the high cost of construction today. Driving up interest rates doesn't help that either. And in my role here, I pretty much am partially responsible for running the business. So that's pretty much any aspect of the business: finance, HR, IT, recruiting, you name it, I'm kind of involved in it. And I love the job because everything is something new every day. And there's nothing easy about the current business climate with unemployment being so low. Recruiting people has never been harder. Hiring people is always a challenge. But I do learn a lot, and I've had some great mentors along the way, and they've definitely helped me grow as an individual, as a person, and I can take those skills and apply them to this board. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I agree there's a lot of challenges coming forth, as Greg had mentioned, about the bridge construction, the septic replacement with the sewer over at the Scenic Park. And somebody mentioned vision, strategic plan, flow of information. Those are all issues I think every company has. And this board is probably no different. I think we could do a better job of communicating our vision. What is our strategic plan? What is our 5-year plan? Maybe we could post it on the website. Maybe we could provide that to the townspeople. But ultimately, what we want to be doing is making sure there's more activities for the kids in the community, whether it's at the Scenic Park or it's at the Gallo Arena. And again, I think I can help in those areas. So with that said, I appreciate your opportunity to speak to you guys today. Buck3.com if you would like to learn more about me or see some good pictures of me. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and I appreciate your vote.
Robert, stay right there. Greg, come on up, and I see at least one question from John York. John, I need you to come up to the microphone because despite the fact that this advertises as a omnidirectional mic, it's not.
Okay, so you heard me ask about the bridge replacement program before, so I have questions about that. I have a lot of questions for you. I'm going to try to focus them, but they go in a couple different directions. So my first has to do with when you meet with DOT, which you will be, and I don't know in the context of that will just be one member of your board meeting with DOT, or the DOT will be at your meetings. I imagine will take different forms as time goes on. And I'm going to just assume, but you can correct, or you can, there's going to be some assumptions, but I assume that Mass DOT will be sharing information with you about their plans, you'll be giving them feedback, and I'm going to just guess that Mass DOT will be asking you to stay quiet about things that are presented to you. They've done that with our town, the other town officers already, and so my question to you is, as a member of the board, if you're dealing with other boards and discussing that sort of an issue, how would you handle that? So my other question has to do more with how much of a role, well, actually, I'll just leave it a question at that, let other people ask questions. That's really the heart of what I'd like to get about how you view your interaction with Mass DOT. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I know how to answer it, but I believe the general manager is the person that's going to be sitting in on these meetings. And presumably, he's going to come back to the board and there'll be public discussion and forum. I can't imagine he's going to be quiet and not have dialogue with people, but that's just a guess.
Bob is correct. Barry Johnson is our point person. We're an elected board, and we had to choose one person to be our spokesperson, and we chose Barry. He has tremendous deep roots in this community as an administrator, and he will be our person. I think from a standpoint of order and some direction that's productive, you can't have too many people in the meeting room. So we're invited to the meeting, but we have no say. If we wanted to go as board members, Barry would speak for us and then come back. Again, I hope that answers your question. That's as we have it. We're just scratching the surface, John, on these meetings. We've had 2 Zooms, and we met with the core. We recently did an overlay of our campground with the swath. It's a 500-foot swath that will be the construction zone that will wipe us out until these bridges are ultimately finished, whenever they begin. So we've been told, and I think the number that we're looking at is roughly 200 campsites would be affected out of 497. So it's a major impact. But that's what we got at this point. So we're working with CORE to feed them our data as to the effect that the span will have. Never mind the infrastructure loops that will go horizontal to the canal. That's another whole. And I know my understanding is that there are 2 or 3 different options on each side of the bridge, and at this point they're trying to sift through them based on the impact as well as the financial impact, and come up with the best plan possible after discussions with the stakeholders, with all the people in the town, whether it be Board of Selectmen or us or any other people that are impacted.
Okay, thank you, Greg. We have an online question. Sue, would you like to?
Yes, John Carroll asks, we know about what the rink does and how it contributes to the community. How does the Bourne Scenic Park contribute? Where does the money go?
The question is for anybody who couldn't hear it. What is the money income from the Bourne Scenic Park? Where does that go?
Well, I can attempt to answer. I'm not on the board, but I mean, basically you have a $4 million business here, right? You're generating revenue from the scenic park through campsites. You're generating revenue from the ice arena through rentals and advertising and things of that nature. And I believe all the money needs to return back into the 2 facilities. So you can't use the money elsewhere for fixing up the streets or anything like that. But the big concern obviously is if and when these bridges do get built, which assumably they'll get built at some point, but it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, who knows. But the impact that Greg just mentioned is significant. A lot of the revenue, the $4 million, is coming from campsites. In fact, I don't think the rink may just break even about that. So if you're losing 50% of your revenue, that's a potential big problem. So definitely something that needs to be a concern for us as we move forward. We need to think of ways to, offset that somehow. Otherwise, we're going to have a big problem on our hands down the road.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we have other questions here.
Mr. Buck.
Greg has an answer.
Mr. Salim has an answer.
Okay, no worries,
Good point.
no worries, not at all. We're about 3.6 in camping. And the legislation that we have, we're enacted by the Massachusetts legislature. Part of our lease agreement with the Corps of Engineers is all revenues generated in both facilities have to go back into both facilities. We have a small little pool of money, $12,000, that we give out to groups in town, food pantry, whoever it is that comes looking for something. High school, whatever the group is. But other than that, we're pretty much locked in to where the revenues go. Camping we're on fire. We have a waiting list of 250 people to seasonal camp there. Camping is huge. The pandemic only just made it even greater. The rink on the other side, it's always been looked at as the Bourne Recreation Authority subsidizes the rink. We lose about $80,000 a year there, but we got the campground that generates the money. We net about 700, I think last year was $750,000 that went back into the facilities. We're always doing upgrades. The facilities are absolutely spotless, and I think that that's, the board guides the staff. And we have the money to do that, but it's truly the management staff and the employees that are the shining stars there to make not only the campground sparkle, but the ice arena as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll take more questions from people. Sandra.
I haven't been at one of the meetings with DOT myself, but I did attend one of the public hearings that they had at the community building. And I remember one of the fellows speaking about how they're going to arrange those roads off the bridge that you talked about, the ramps that take people where they want to go. And they were going to do traffic studies and some other issues with properties, let's say at the end of the Bourne Bridge, that are undeveloped land up there on the, what used to be Canal Side Commons. When you met with them, have they given you any concrete reasons why they've located the bridges where they think they're going to put them? Any reason for?
My quick answer is no. I think that it's a work in progress for them as well. Are there going to be alterations or changes along the way? I guess it all depends on their fact finding or what they come up with.
And the second part of that question is, I noticed that we have some new builds right where the bridges are now, the big Cumberland Farms at the foot of the Bourne Bridge. The bridge won't be there and the roads will be changed around a bit, but there was never anything there in that spot that would generate the kind of traffic and customers that Cumberland Farms will. There was a lawyer there, a florist, an insurance company. That's all that was ever there. So, and the other end, the Belmont Circle, we have a gas station with apartments and stores and so forth, and perhaps a new 24-unit condo complex going up behind the gas station. And I'm wondering about, when we open these new roads, the idea of the new bridge is to give the safety, you've got wider lanes and so forth. It's not going to reduce the number of cars coming over there. And the new roads, I just hope they're not all clogged when they start to open, because these very heavily trafficked generating businesses were never there before.
Yeah.
So you're going
Sandra, can I just ask you to hold that? That's very interesting, but it really isn't relevant to the Recreation Authority. If you,
well, you have the inside, when you meet with them, I don't meet with them, they just gave examples of what they plan to do.
You know how I'd answer that? That's all of us in this room. We're just one piece of the puzzle, but it's the planners, it's the selectmen, it's everybody that sits in this room. And I think we're all scared to death of what these bridges, if they happen, when they happen, are going to mean to this community.
Right.
And I think we all need to be at the table. And I think they're getting that message, but they're beginning their process of due diligence. And so I don't have answers at all, other than I think it's a town problem. Or town concern might be better.
I think we're all involved in it.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, public dialogue and public discussion are the only way you're going to get a voice, so I guess we all should be concerned because it's going to impact our lives. I live in Sagamore Beach. We all know what's going on right now with the Sagamore Bridge construction, and that's just one lane of traffic. Imagine when we are building 2 new bridges, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, my kids go to school every day, and it takes them about an hour to get from Sagamore Beach over to Bourne Village. So it's a problem. It's impacting not only the kids, but it's impacting everyone that works and lives in not just Bourne, but the surrounding towns. So let's hope that that ends quickly. But that's a sign of things to come, for sure. So we should all be very concerned. It's great that the Recreation Authority has a presence in that steering committee, and hopefully that will help, at least their interests, which are very important. That's kind of what me and Greg are here to more or less discuss.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Rec Authority?
Yes.
Candidates? Albert Clegg.
I have 3 quick questions. First two will be quick, third maybe not. Greg, how many people are there on the authority?
5 board members?
Yes.
5.
5.
4 elected by the people of the community and 1 appointed by the governor.
Okay. Second.
I'm going to hold this for you.
Thank you. Second question is, and third question, Bob, this is head-to-head competition for a single spot. Why is this the right time, given what's in front of this town with the bridges especially? Why is this the right time to make a change in leadership on the rec authority?
Well, as I said earlier, I don't think there's anything wrong with anything that the rec authority has done. I think they're doing a great job and that they represent the town very well, and the facilities are awesome. My pitch to everybody is, you know, I am there. I am in the building all the time. I see everything. And, you know, I think we could do things differently. I think we could offer more programs. I think we could offer the community as a whole more information about what we're trying to do. As an example, you know, actually we're looking to maybe build a lobby addition. You know, the first I saw of that was walking into the building one day and some nice schematics, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. But what I think was lacking there, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but was engagement with the stakeholders, the people that are there in the facility, the programs, the regular people, the townspeople. And I think we would all have a nice voice in maybe what is included in this facilities renovation. And that would go for anything. I think that's one area where I'd like to see some improvement is more exposure so that more of the community is involved with what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do, both at the park and at the gallery.
Good.
Third
Okay.
question.
Greg, do you have any comment about Robert's response?
My question is tied to that, Bob.
Okay.
The question was, Greg, you've been before us many times. You served honorably for many years. Why is this the right time for us to vote for you to stay on the board?
That's a good question. And I think that that's all of you's determination to make. I think experience. Again, this is my training background. I do think I have the experience to continue, especially during a challenging time of planning more than anything else. I've been the visionary. Let me say this. It's a board decision, but I've led the vision to change the lease. We basically have developed a new lease with the federal government that will go until 2042. I changed the enactment. I basically made a motion that we needed to update our document, our Magna Carta, our Constitution. It was 50 years old, and we did. And it involved a lot of painful work. It was going before the Finance Committee for their approval, then going before town meeting through a home rule petition, then having it approved at the legislative session. The legislature had to approve it. Now we have a new enactment that this board, when I'm gone, when I'm dead and buried 50 years from now, we have updated our purpose, our whole mission. And those are not fancy things. No one likes to write a term paper. And that's what, it took 2 years to get the language with bond counsel. My wife is an attorney, and she taught at UMass Law, legal writing. So she basically worked on the document for us. And then ultimately, but I think for me, this is my passion. I think I said it earlier. I'm retired. I invest all my time. You know, an elected board, I've been elected the chair of that board 13 times. Why? Because you deal with the day-to-day operation. I have the time right now. And I would hope that you would find it, that I'm the right person for another 3-year term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Any other questions for the rec authority? Bill?
I would point out that the Corps of Engineers has responsibility for all navigable waterways, including the construction of the bridge, which suggests to me that there needs to be some sort of contact with somebody known as Congressman Keating. I believe he lives in Bourne. And I wonder whether or not you have some evidence that Congressman Keating is actually on board and supporting and providing what I would call both liaison and some force of action with regard to the Corps of Engineers. Because who you see in the Corps of Engineers in Bourne are not the people who make the decision. The decision is made down in DC. So you have to have a federal contact, and I'm just wondering if you're getting any response from Keating at this point, not in rhetoric, but in actual evidence that he's doing something.
You know, Bob, I don't know if you want to take that or not. But
No, actually, Greg is...
I know, and in fairness to Bob, he does. I have met personally with Michael Jackman. Michael Jackman is Congressman Keating's legislator.
Yeah.
He's very much aware of where we're at here. We've met with Jackman a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the door ajar.
Okay, so you're telling me you haven't really been face-to-face with Keating?
No.
Okay, that's an indication of how much interest he has in it. So I'm wondering, how do we get everybody in this room to understand that the Corps of Engineers, with the responsibility for navigable waterways and the construction of that bridge, how do we get their attention, if not through our federal representative? So, it's a rhetorical question.
Bill. Thank you very much.
And by the way, thank you both for standing up and running.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for the Rec Authority? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on. Does anybody have any last-minute questions for any of the candidates who are still with us? Anyone online, Sue?
No one online except Carrie Schofield did come online. I'm just wondering, I messaged her, but I didn't get a response offering if she wanted to speak. Thank you, John.
What I can do to help my community. I do have 2 children, one of whom is still in the boarding school system, so it's definitely something, important to me.
Anybody have any questions for Carrie Schofield, who's an incumbent for the school committee? I have a question. Carrie, I'll repeat that because it was probably garbled. What do you see as one of the biggest challenges for the school committee for the next school year and in the next couple of years?
Now, to be honest, I don't see any big glaring challenges. I think this past year was more of a challenge, and we're looking forward to, the past few years in terms of dealing with, all the restrictions with COVID and renegotiations of contracts. So we're just hoping that the next year and 2 are not going to be as challenging.
Anyone else have a question? Because I have a follow-up. Carrie, is the board actively addressing the lower enrollment at the high school and the opting out of attending Bourne High School once they leave the middle school? Is that an ongoing conversation, or is that something that's not being addressed?
There has not been much conversation about that yet, but I'm sure that will be something that is upcoming. I know every year it is looked at as to what the incoming class numbers are, and we still don't have the exact numbers for what will be happening next year. I mean, of course, from the middle school there are other options, so that's always a challenge in terms of keeping kids in town. But I feel like what the high school has been doing to compete, for lack of a better word, with the other schools in the area, they've done a phenomenal job. I think the senior internships and the Pathways program are definitely going to help maintain kids staying in town.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, with that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Okay, only one mic at a time. Mass DOT is staging an in-person question and answer session or information session from noon to 3 and then
5 to 8.
5 to 8 next Wednesday at the Veterans Community Building on Main Street. So sharpen your knives and show up with your questions. John, we'll reserve a front row seat for you there. Okay.
I'll be standing and moving around the whole time. But
Okay. Okay. Again, I want to thank on behalf of Jane Herder and the Cataumet Civic Associates. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank all of you for being online, and thank 15 of the 22 candidates participated. So one way or the other. So thank you very much.